by fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome to the Hogsty, DC's unofficial leading source for all things Redskins and the NFL. The Super Bowl is over with the Kansas City Chiefs out on top. Congrats to them, but all eyes turn now to a long offseason and, of course, the draft. Joining me tonight to begin this long off-season journey are Alex Zeese, Steve Thomas, and myself, of course. I'm not joining me. I don't know why I said that. Welcome to the show, everybody, and let's get on into it. How are y'all doing?
You're joining yourself. That could be construed a lot of ugly ways.
Listen, Steve, no one welcomes me to the show ever, dude. I've got to do it.
I'm still...
do you want me to host and welcome you to the show, Sean? Welcome to the show.
Next show, you're the host. You're going to do it.
I'm still recovering from the destruction of my moral values that came around from the Super Bowl halftime show. So I turned my innocent eyes briefly...
Steve, your moral values were destroyed way before.
Don't burst my bubble. I'm an angel.
Yeah, this is the making of a great Steve rant. I can already tell.
No, it's not. I didn't have a problem with it. The music sucked, but I just thought it's funny that in this we get offended by absolutely everything in this country now. Somehow It's okay for Shakira and Jennifer Lopez to twerk on camera, and nobody had a problem. Not only did nobody have a problem with it, but everybody praised them for it. I just think it's funny, and it's just very hypocritical.
Well, Steve, I think it's not quite everyone was okay with it. It's the people who you're talking about, which are, let's say, the people on the left, are okay with what Shakira and J-Lo do. And conservatives traditionally are always against that kind of performance because it's a little risque. It's rather risque. It's a little burlesque.
I'm a conservative, and I wasn't against the performance. I was against the music because it was terrible and they were lip syncing.
Well, you and I have always been firmly in the anti-lip sync category for all these performances. I mean, you worked in that world for a while. I've worked in that world my whole life. Not concerts, but AV and audio. How you can be considered a performer and not sing, I don't
just
understand.
For the record, of all the concerts I worked in, granted it was a long time ago now, not one of those bands ever had a backing track playing off tape, ever. Never.
Right. I mean, there were moments in that thing where they were fake playing instruments, and they weren't even holding them to their mouths at that point.
The horn players didn't even bother putting it to their mouths. Shakira's guitar was not plugged into a remote pack at all. She was just holding it, and she wasn't fretting it.
It's not plugged into anything.
I will say, though...
they look good.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, a few years back, Red Hot Chili Peppers were caught doing the exact same thing. They weren't plugged in, and it turned out they had recorded a special Super Bowl track beforehand, but they didn't play it live because they wanted to just go nuts and jump around. And that's what I'm going to say about this one.
I've heard that the NFL encourages that. They want you to go off track, but some of these performers have been doing it live. Prince did it live. Sure. Tom Petty was live. U2 was live. I don't think any of these.
I think Bruno was playing the drums a few years back. I think he was really doing that.
Who was?
So yeah. Bruno Mars.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say Bruno Mars looked to me, it was more or less live. They might have had some backing tracks mixed in, but his live vocal was live. All these little pop princess acts that have come on, I don't think any of them have been live recently.
I don't think a lot of them are live when they perform day to day. I mean, that's what angers me.
Well, it's not an accident that pop singers have become a lot more physically attractive, male and female, nowadays. Because if you go back to the 60s, you got Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin looked like a horse. She was physically extremely unattractive.
Harsh but true.
She was not an attractive woman physically.
Right. Mama's in the Pop
Bob
same
Dylan
thing.
is a hideous beast, Yeah, Mama's in the...
He also can't sing, but he's a great writer.
He used to be able to sing. He can't even talk now. But now you got these super, super hot people. And the reason is very few people have everything, right? These people can't sing. It's just so they go lip syncing and it's a studio creation, but they look good, and that's what J-Lo is. So you're not going to convince me that J-Lo is a.
It's a dance act.
Yeah,
it's a dance act.
You're not going to convince me J-Lo's a singer. I'm sorry, a professional top quality singer.
By the way, I'm in that I really don't care if that's how they want to go perform because I've told think I mentioned on the show. I briefly tried to help run a burlesque show in DC, and so like my moral values on that are like, hey,
do your thing.
If this is what you want to do, go do it.
Just be open about it.
I paid a guy to stick his tongue in a mousetrap, so I'm not going to judge.
Just be open about it. Just tell me. That's the thing. Just tell me.
No, I think that's fair.
But they look good. I would have given that halftime performance a C. Because it was appealing. The music was awful, but it was visually appealing at least. And as long as you didn't have a 7-year-old in the room, it was fine.
Yeah, in my opinion, it beats out Madonna and LMFAO for that one's I think the worst in recent history in terms of Super Bowl shows. So this one's better than that.
Everyone says Maroon 5 was terrible. Black Eyed Peas had a rough go. I remember.
Yeah. You know what? Like we've said a million times, none of them were really great in recent history. They're all kind of lukewarm to bad.
This halftime show gets entirely too much attention, if you ask me. Alex had the right idea, actually. I can't remember if you said it on the show or what. They need... Yeah, you did. You need to get like a movie producer in here to really do like a show. Bring in... was it you that said that, Alex? I think it was.
Yeah, it was me. I said it was the wrong guy who did the Olympics, but because I think I said it was Guy Ritchie. It was Danny Boyle who did the Olympics.
You were right with the concept. Let's have enough with J-Lo and LMFAO or whatever. Forget all. It's just awful. Right. Unless you're going to get like the Stones or somebody back or some really classic, iconic name. Just forget it and do a show.
Right.
Yeah, like a light show. Or better yet, don't do anything and bring the game on earlier.
Yeah, get it over with sooner. Yeah,
I think I heard somebody. It might have been when I was listening to like Chad Dukes. He said, "Just bring back a marching band and just have a marching band and you're done."
There you go.
I'm fine with that.
That would be Imagine if you were that marching band. Wow, that's like the Super Bowl of the marching bands.
Well, the problem is that not enough NFL teams have marching bands anymore. It's us and the.
I was going to say it's only a handful.
The University of Miami marching band or something, to do their thing.
Yeah,
some pro
that's true. You could do
Marine Corps marching band.
Well, they don't have enough.
You could do that. Yeah,
they don't march like that, so that wouldn't work.
Steve, you always got to get so technical on me. Damn, Steve.
I don't think any of the military marching bands are marching
not like that. Not
bands,
like
are
that.
they?
No.
Yeah.
That's not to say they couldn't, march, but no, they wouldn't do a
If
show.
Danny Boyle directed
they know how to march. They just don't know how to march and play. It's a different.
Well, they know
skill.
how to march and play. They just don't do a show like that.
Right.
Yeah. We all can march.
I think we could all pull that off.
One thing you do is you march up and down the square.
Well, we've talked now for 5 minutes about the halftime show. That means we have to at least talk for 10 minutes about the game, so we don't contribute to this too much attention to the halftime show thing. So let's talk about this. And remind me, did any of us call Kansas City, or did we all call San Fran?
Dude, I had it nailed pretty well. I called Kansas City, and I think I went back and listened to the show again to see what I called, and I think I said 28-20, I think is what I said. So I was really close.
Okay.
I either said 28-20 or 31-20, one of the two. Either way, I was really close.
A lot of us called 31, I think. A lot of us were right there, so pretty good guesses on our part, but I don't think anyone would have called the total comeback turnaround that we saw during that game. Scoring 21 unanswered. Amazing.
Although with the Chiefs, you should have,
21 unanswered in 6.5 minutes.
The Chiefs have come back in every game in the playoffs, so you should
Yeah, you're right. Actually.
Yeah.
What was that, Alex?
I was going to say, and it was only like 6.5 minutes left, and they came back. Like, that was the most amazing thing, was how little time they had left, and they just blew them out.
And did it... Go ahead.
Isn't the big debate to me, why did the 49ers get away from what they do best?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a big debate.
Well, exactly. And I was going to ask, does it seem like the 49ers let it get away from them, or did the Chiefs wake up? And it sounds like, Steve, you're saying the 49ers let it get away from them. They choked a bit.
Because the evidence is there that Kansas City is like one of the greatest clutch playoff teams in history. I mean, I haven't done any research in this at all, so I don't know. But, I mean, I can't imagine too many teams did what they've done in the playoffs. Come back repeatedly.
They won 3 games in a row, double-digit points.
Right.
Deficits.
I don't know if that, but there can't be too many teams that have done that. So I think it's a combination of both. And like I refuse to put the whole thing on Kyle Shanahan. I don't like Kyle Shanahan. I think he's kind of a douchebag. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the players play. At the end of the day, Jimmy Garoppolo was the guy who missed the wide-open touchdown pass.
Three interceptions, right?
Three interceptions. Yeah. You know, the defensive end and the linebackers are the ones that let the Kansas City running back run for a touchdown at the end of the game. That was a game-sealing touchdown. So none of that is on Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, put on Shanahan the question of why the play calling got out of whack on the offense, but he didn't throw the ball, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I think you can question that, and you also have to question that end of the first half strategy. You have a minute 30, and you don't really go for it until, 20 seconds left?
I think he was trying to thread the needle of both burning time off and scoring points. To me, it just showed a lack.
Yeah, but you do it the other way around. You try and get the big chunk yardage.
I'm with you. I agree with you. I'm just saying I think he was trying to thread that needle and did it badly. And I think he also just showed a lack of faith in his defense, too. Forget that.
That could be it,
Don't worry about what Patrick Mahomes can do in the last 30 seconds. Worry about that when it happens. Get the points. You know, go for it and get the points. Yeah. Use your timeouts appropriately. They wasted like a full minute, you know. So, it was poor clock management definitely there. There's no doubt. And that's only on Shanahan.
Yeah, and look at that last drive. Well, actually not the last drive from San Francisco. I guess it's the second to last, but they turned it over. I mean, they've just got Garoppolo. I guess they're in full panic mode at that point, which is what you're speaking to. But they've just got Garoppolo trying to sling it over and over and over again. Every single play in that drive was a pass, and it turned over on downs. Next drive they did the same thing, interception, and that really put it away. So, I think that it seems like postseason inexperience and panic mode. I mean, is that what we're going to chalk that up to?
I think so. And I mean, if I recall, also, isn't Kyle Shanahan the one that kind of blew the Falcons' lead against the Patriots a few years ago?
I mean, that's kind of his rap now.
Yeah, it's kind of his MO.
So there you go.
You know, he's kind of the Clayton Kershaw of NFL coaches, I guess.
It always comes back to Kershaw.
I'm a Dodger fan. Congratulations on the Dodgers for finally spending money, by the way, bringing in Mookie Betts and David Price. It's about time, for God's sakes. You guys have sucked up the offseason.
So I think that it's a fair point. That is kind of like Kyle's getting that rap. I want to talk about the Garoppolo thing, though. Like, he had a bad game, but can you really put it on him? I mean, like, one, we know you don't put it on his back. He's not that kind of quarterback. He's a game manager. And other than a great tight end and apparently a great fullback, like, you don't really think of San Francisco having a lot of passing options. You know, like, putting into that, situation, who else are you going to?
It's not who they are. I think, honestly, you could have thrown half the quarterbacks in the NFL onto that team, and they would have been in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit online, you and I. And I've said by this, you could take the top 25 quarterbacks and put them on a good team and figure out how to make a functioning offense.
Quarterbacking is so dependent on coaching, on your protection scheme, and on the weapons around you. I always use I think I'm Josh Rosen's last defender at this point, but I always use him as an example. Because if you watch his college, I spent a lot of time watching his college film. Dude can really play. He did at UCLA. Right. He was legit, and he was playing, did a lot of pro-style concepts, and he came into the league into just a horrible situation with just the worst offensive coaching staff in football in Arizona. There's a reason the OC got fired halfway through the season, and they changed schemes. And then, so he did badly. There's no shock, there. And the offensive line was terrible. Then he went to Miami, which was in full-scale, tear it down, lose mode, blow it up mode. Yeah. There's no wonder he did bad. Yeah. In the meantime, you got Jimmy Garoppolo, who came from New England, the best program in the league, and then you put him on the 49ers, and great running game. It's it's so situational. It's so situational.
I think it's situational, but what I've always said is if you have a coach who can sit down with his quarterback, figure out what he does well and what he does poorly, you can build a functioning passing game these days. Yeah. And by function, I mean 3,000 plus yards, because everyone gets to 3,000 yards passing now. It's not like the 90s or 80s when that was like a high benchmark.
I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 at most quarterbacks who are truly, truly franchise quarterbacks who can come in, lead a team no matter what it is, and win.
Oh, put them on their back.
I think there's a lot smaller number of people realize. Like Peyton Manning was one of those guys. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. I don't even know if Tom Brady is. I mean, I guess he is because he's had no weapons around him for like a decade. So I throw Brady in there. But beyond that, would you really trust any of these other? Maybe Roethlisberger at his peak.
I mean, Mahomes
It's
now
too
probably.
early to tell. He's got a ton of weapons around him.
That's fair.
Just a million weapons. So, but my point is, it's a really small number. All the rest of those guys, there's like that middle group of like 20 quarterbacks, is what Alex.
That's what I'm talking
Alex
about.
is suggesting. And then there's the bottom few that just suck and don't belong.
Right, and that is a small. I would actually. I haven't had time to do this because I've been crazy busy at work, as you know, Steve. But I bet you could go through and just start counting. I think you probably have 28 quarterbacks now who are at least capable starters.
Yeah, probably.
Which is a crazy thing to think about in the NFL today. But
I wouldn't swear to the number, but I mean, roughly. Yeah, I think you're roughly right. There's only a handful of them that just don't belong.
Right, and there might be more than one team with multiple.
And I think you take all those 20 guys and dump them in San Francisco.
They all get to the playoffs at least, yeah.
Right.
They look like Garoppolo, more or less.
I mean, ballpark, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you kind of put the ribbon on that one. It's going to be tough for anyone to win, tossing an interception to start and at the end. Yeah, go ahead, of course.
One last observation on this. What I loved the most in this game, the weird, unique running styles both these teams kind of brought to the table. You saw
unconventional
option runs. You saw all that cool stuff San Francisco was doing with wide receivers.
Well, it
running.
wasn't just that, Alex. I mean, the touchdown to the Kansas City fullback. Did you guys see this?
Yeah.
This was a play that they stole from the 1948 Rose Bowl. Where the fullback was like an offset eye, basically, I think, and then the fullback went into motion. There and took the handoff at a really weird angle, and the blocking scheme was odd. That was from the 1948 Rose Bowl, like USC, I think it was.
Was that the touchdown or the fourth and one play?
I thought that was a touchdown. I might be wrong.
Am I wrong? Well, I don't remember. But yeah, there was stuff like from the Notre Dame Four Horsemen era that was being run there, and that was awesome.
You know what?
I look at that, I'm like, I want to see more of this.
Here's my macro point, because it was before we move on. In this era in which everybody and their brother thinks that you have to pass to win, what did we see in the Super Bowl? We saw two teams that can really, really run the ball, and two teams that have quality defenses. One, an outstanding defense that had that got beat. And then Kansas City's defense is tough too. But you saw two teams that are focused primarily in running the ball. And Mahomes makes a lot of hay with his legs. And he gets he
ran a dozen options.
And he gets a lot of hay out of the running game, because he missed some balls. He didn't throw the ball particularly well in the Super Bowl, but it just goes to show if you have a quality defense and a running game, you can go far in the NFL, no matter what people say about this modern passing era.
Right, and both just very great run blocking teams. Too.
I mean, even the Ravens, with Lamar Jackson, they can really run the ball.
Yep.
They were the number one seed in the AFC.
Yeah, there you go. Big ups, of course, to Andy Reid. Steve, you like to rag on him, but winningest coach, I think. You like exactly
because
thank you.
He's fat.
He's the winningest coach, I think they said.
I made a fat joke. Good for you, Steve.
I'm sorry, but prior to this, he was the winningest coach in NFL history without a Super Bowl win? Is that what they said, I think? And now that changes.
Well,
this changes
what
that,
it was,
so.
I think it was, what I saw, you might be right, Sean, but the stat I saw was that he had been coaching the longest. He'd been a head coach the longest without winning a Super Bowl, I think is what I saw. I mean, as far as Andy Reid goes, I mean, remember, he's had a really, really tragic, about 10 years or so. I mean, I can't remember the exact circumstances, but he lost a son, and the other one was on drugs or something, and his family life really went to heck in a handbasket. He kind of, I mean, far be it for me to even think about what's in his head, but at some level, he sort of made a choice, right? Football, this is what he's going to do. I mean, I hope it was worth it, because he basically lost his family for this, I'm not criticizing him at all, but I mean...
Wow, way to take a positive moment and totally ruin it, Steve.
I mean, he made a choice, I mean, and he got a Super Bowl ring on. Congratulations. I hope it was worth it,
Yeah, no, fair enough. Hey, every legacy is going to be examined. It's just the nature of the beast. So here we are. Moving on then from Super Bowl stuff, let's get back to the old Redskins land. So we had a retirement announcement recently, and this is going to segue into other topics, including our poll and other stuff. So let's start here. Retirement of Vernon Davis. How'd this hit you guys when you heard the news?
It was time. He pulled the trigger at the right moment. You know,
Probably
I think
true.
he knew, you know, when he was in there last year, he didn't play well. He didn't look like himself. He looked like an old dude.
He got hurt.
Yeah, he got
too.
hurt, and he looked like an old guy. And I bet you the concussion scared him because he was out for multiple weeks before they IR'd him. You know, it was just time. It was his time. He's charismatic. You know, he'll be on TV somewhere. He'll be fine. You know, he's a well-spoken, smart, charismatic guy. I bet you he's going to be on NFL Network or one of those shows, ESPN or somewhere.
Well, it sounds like he wants to get into acting.
really?
Acting is what I've kind of seen. I mean, and you know, he's good looking enough. He could pull Terry Crews and, you know, go that route pretty easily, I think.
You got to have some charisma. I mean, that's a rare type. You're talking about a physical, athletic specimen and someone with the charisma and the acting talent. That's tough. But hey, I absolutely wish him the best. That would be awesome to keep seeing his face.
Well, just use me as an example. You know, like very few people have my charisma and my looks.
That's absolutely true. Literally no one I know, Steve. You're incomparable. Incomparable. No, but I think
are you trying to say that like a disagreeable curmudgeon is not, you know, appealing to Hollywood?
No, I'm
not going to say what celebrity you most resemble, Steve. I'll put it that way.
I'm saying rarely do you find someone with athletic talent and acting talent and really good looks. It's rare. So hey, but totally wish him the best. The question I have for you guys about this is, knowing that he declined a little bit in his playing, how much of a hold does it leave on the team? I mean, my goodness, we've got nothing at tight end now. He was declining, you're right, and he was injured, but this is a major need, even worse now, right?
He was much better than Hale Hentages and Jeremy Sprinkle.
Yes,
at a minimum.
Sure.
Because those are our tight ends, guys.
I think
Hale Hentages and Jeremy Sprinkle.
Right.
But I think we all kind of knew this was coming at the same time. He was either going to retire or this was going to be his last year here, one way or the other.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that was, you know, written down somewhere and put in somebody's back pocket.
The thing is that Vernon never had great hands. If you look at his catch percentage, it's significantly lower. You know what, Vernon?
Yeah, isn't it like in the low 50s?
It was in the low 50s. And he was on some teams with some good quarterbacks there for a while, too. His thing was athleticism and speed. And once that goes away, you can't rely on, like, sure hands as a tight end. I mean, he's just done. You know, that was his time. And so to answer your question, Sean, I mean, once he start losing his athleticism, the value of Vernon Davis really goes down a lot. Yeah. And so it was only going to get worse if he stayed on for another year or two.
Right.
Fair enough.
And now, I will say, you know, you're making it sound like he's gotten old. You got to remember, his final touchdown play was that 65-yard run where he hurdled a guy against the Eagles. So it wasn't like he was completely out of the tank, but you're better off probably going now than staying too many more years and really falling off.
Well, yeah, that's my point. It's not like this was Shaq with the Celtics. You know, this was like Shaq retiring out of Miami. You know, that's what this is. That's what. For those of you who remember, Shaq went from the Lakers to Miami. He looked pretty good in Miami. He won a title there. Then he went to 2 or 3 other teams, and he finished up as a shell of himself with the Celtics, which burned my butt to no end because he was a Laker. You know, but Vernon Davis, if you go through that analogy, this is kind of Vernon Davis hopping off the train after the Miami Heat title. You know, where he was still kind of himself. He knew it was going to fall apart, and so he pulled the trigger. I bet you anything that concussion scared him.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I mean, I think if a concussion doesn't scare you these days, there might be something else wrong with you.
Well, yeah,
right.
With everything we're learning.
Yeah, especially I don't know if this is borne out by the science or not. This is unsubstantiated. But I imagine as you get older, a concussion becomes more and more critical, I would imagine, just using logic here. As you get older, concussions probably have more of an impact on you. So, yeah.
Right. You're smarter, and you realize, I don't want to be dumber.
Yeah, I'm getting dumber by the second.
The last concussion I had was when my ex-wife hit me in the head with a shovel. You know, if you no, I'm kidding. That didn't happen. If you're listening, just stop. I don't want to hear it.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen and you forgot.
No, maybe that's the case. No, I mean, I mean, obviously, and I'm sure that's probably not his first concussion either. You know, he's a pro football player, a tight end. I'm sure he's had other concussions. So it's, you know, it certainly would only get worse. I mean, look at Jordan Reed, for God's sakes, you know, poor guy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, again, we're just assuming he's done at this point.
Well, even if he's
pretty
not,
safe
look at
though, right?
You know, the effect. Like, didn't we all know when that dirty hit? Who was the Falcon safety that hit him?
He was done.
You know, with the dirty hit there in the preseason, we all knew that was it for him, right? Everybody in the whole world knew that. Yep. Whereas you go back 6 years, you wouldn't have necessarily said that, you know, about him. But he's just been. Sure. I feel really bad for Jordan Reed that it kind of worked out because he could have been at the Travis Kelce level. He was. His stats were better than Travis Kelce's for a while. You know, until the injuries really started to pile up on him. He could have been at that level of respect around the NFL if only he had stayed healthy. And the main reason he didn't was all the concussions.
Sure. Yeah. Different type of player, but yes.
Should have stayed at quarterback, if you ask me. Okay. This is a great topic to talk about now because it segues very nicely into our poll for this week, Steve. We had a user poll, yes, about tight ends?
Yeah, we had a user poll.
Let's hear it.
We did. You know, this is our first one. We're probably going to keep. I'm going to try to keep these up through the whole off season. But if we miss a week or two, I know some of you guys write in about the polls and you like the polls, and I'm glad you like them. But sometimes we really have to pull them out of our butts to get something interesting. So there may be weeks when we just don't do it, rather than just doing dumb polls. But the poll's about Greg Olsen because the Carolina Panthers released Greg Olsen on Tuesday.
Right.
Of this week. And Olsen had written a really nice note on Twitter to the Panthers fans a few days ago. He knew it was coming. So, obviously, his head coach is now the Redskins head coach. So the question was this. Greg Olsen is about to be released by the Panthers. He'll be 35 in March, and he is a 14-year vet. The Redskins desperately need a starting tight end. If you were Ron Rivera, would you bring him to Washington? Yes or no? I tried to come up with four answers to this, but it was...
But it's really
just
yes
variations of yes or no, and it was dumb. So we went with yes or no. For my answer, I'll let you guys guess. I tell you what, I'll say my answer. What do you guys think? Do you think the public would have voted for this? And what are your thoughts?
I am going to say the public didn't vote for this. That's my guess. My thoughts are, I mean, I'm assuming my thoughts are right in line with what I'm assuming the public thought, which is that kind of what we just talked about, Vernon Davis, he's getting older. You're probably better off going younger now. I haven't really looked at Olsen's stats closely enough to tell you if I feel like he's really significantly declined. But that's my thought on it. Why go for a 35-year-old now?
I would actually go the other way. I would say it's yes and yes. I think... as long as you're not paying him, you know, a 4-year deal, you know, if this is,
stopgap kind of thing.
We need help, this is a 1-year stopgap for a guy I trust, then I'm fine. I'm fine with it, and I think that's kind of where the public would be too.
First of all, the public, it was a very close vote, and this is a popular poll, so a lot of people voted. It was 52% yes, 48% no, so it was almost evenly split, pretty much
close.
Down the middle. The people, and I'll read a few comments here, but the people who said no said it for basically the reason you were saying, Sean. So why on earth do we want to bring a 35-year-old in? We're trading one old guy for another old guy. Why are we doing that? And the people who said yes were more or less in the camp of, you know, as long as I'm not spending a ton of money, you know, what's the harm in this? So that was kind of where people shook out. I'll read a few comments.
So 2 common sense opinions that are relatively
Well, don't worry.
high.
There's a whole bunch of other nonsensical opinions from Redskins fans.
Oh, good. I want to hear nonsense.
Not about this, though. Actually, most of these comments were pretty good. Yeah, I'll try to find a nonsense one here. I'm doing this on the fly. Okay, Mr. Meek at Meekrel said, yes, having an all-around tight end as him would be great for our developing tight ends, and if Reed decides to continue his NFL career. You know, that's decent, right? Dave, who responds to a lot of these,
hey Dave,
said as long as it's more of a piece to mentor a young tight end, he's not brought in to be tight end number one. Sure, there's that one. Mike Parlett, who's at Parlett316, just says no thanks. Just forget it. Don't come here, Greg. Forget it. Lee Duncan, who I want to say that may be our buddy Robbie Duncan's friend, I think, or a brother or something, I think. Robbie, if you're listening to this, let me know.
I would assume a relative and not, a friend with the same
yeah,
last
you're right. That's kind of dumb. Yeah, Robbie has a brother. I can't. Robbie, if you're listening to this, let me know if this is your brother.
Could be a cousin.
He just writes age and injury equals no.
What's the injury? I'm forgetting. What was his major? Did he have a major injury?
He had a couple years of injuries.
He's missed like
last
14 games in the past couple years. He's missed a lot of time.
Just cumulatively. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Over 3 years.
Okay, here's a pretty good one. Night Moves at Quelly83 says he'll play 2 games, get hurt, and be out for 8. Play a couple here and there as the season comes to an end. We already have a Jordan Reed. That's a pretty smart Alec comment. You might like that one, Alex. Yeah,
I like that. All right. Night Moves, you're a dick. I like you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, and here's another one. DMV United says, oft injured in 35, and then he's got an internet GIF of Bugs Bunny saying no repeatedly over and over and over again. No,
right.
no.
All right.
Okay, so that's, you got it kind of the general
yeah,
thread of it. That's
I mean,
the poll.
So I'll say nobody really mentioned this, but I mean, some people kind of in a roundabout way reference this, but there can be something said for you're a new coach going into a new place. You want to bring back some of the old guys. Not even necessarily to directly mentor people, but to establish your new culture. This guy listens to you. He works well with you. He looks up to you and respects you. Sends a message to the rest of the team. That's a whole other aspect of it. So if the thought process of it was kind of more along those lines, I'd be a hell of a lot more excited about it. If our intention is to ride them, as hard as we can, I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it, well, I would have voted for yes if I'd voted subject to, number one, it's got to be a friendly contract. You can't give the man a 5-year deal. You give him a 2-year deal that's team friendly, pays him fairly, but the team can get out of it. But you can't consider Greg Olson to be your future. Greg Olson is a guy to come in, provide some veteran presence, as the case may be, because don't forget, these players need that. Think about how the praises that were sung for Adrian Peterson. Everybody up and down the roster universally praises Adrian Peterson. Alex Smith, another guy who came in, everybody likes, and obviously got hurt and all that. But teams need these kind of veterans, especially when you have a new coach like this who works well, with the coach.
Right.
I think it would be a good move to bring him in, but you have to plan for the future. I mean, you have to still draft a guy, for sure, to be the future, the next Greg Olson.
And let's not forget, this is not a good tight end draft class. Right. Like, there's some guys here who, as I've looked at them, I see guys I like, but they're going to be kind of late round gambles. You're going to have to develop them. And even the free agent class, it's not particularly deep. At least it's not a lot of 26-year-olds coming out off their first deals. Yeah. There might be 1 or 2 of those, and they're going to require, a pretty high price. So this might not be a bad option in those respects because we've talked about this before. In free agency, you want to make sure you at least have some decent bodies filling the biggest holes on your roster. They don't have to be superstars, but we don't have a tight end, period. End of discussion at this point. Yeah. Greg Olson, at least, that's your bottom benchmark now. And you can say, this guy can start for now.
Really and truly, if you look at we'll get to free agents. I'll go over this at the end of the show. We're going to do our regular free agents, previews and all that stuff. But in terms of tight ends, if you're really looking for starters they could bring in, realistically, Eric Ebron, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, Tyler Eifert. None of the rest of these guys are proven or they're really old. It's those 4 guys. And looks like what I've heard is Hunter Henry may end up staying, with the Chargers. Don't know. Right. So there's not a lot of options. And so you kind of need a guy, unless it's going to be the Jeremy Sprinkle show. And nobody wants that. Even Mr. and Mrs. Sprinkle don't want that. So
he's a fine number 3.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him, but he's not developed into a starter. So I mean, Greg Olson come in, he's going to probably get hurt for sure. No doubt. Mm-hmm. But if you're paying him a reasonable rate and you have planned for this by drafting another guy, also, it might work out fine.
Yeah.
Right. What were we paying Vernon Davis? Something like $4 million a year?
Roughly.
Or
Yeah, it was more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think Olsen's probably about the same.
Yeah.
That's what you'd be
Probably.
looking at. That's not unreasonable.
See that? Look, he'll still make defenses respect him to a degree, and that'll help the whole thing run a little smoother. So, yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Well, I
making
mean, with
sense.
him, it's just can he be out there? Defense would respect him a lot if he's playing. With Greg Olsen,
Right.
the problem with him is that he hasn't been playing. That's what all the people who were complaining about this are seeing, is they see that Olsen has missed a whole bunch of games. And I'm going to tell you the number here in just a minute. Because once again, I was not prepared.
I know last year he was healthier than years before.
Yeah, he played 14 games last year, 9 in 2018, 7 in 2017. So, I mean, he's missed 9 plus 7, and so he's missed 18 games in 3 years, which is a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Yeah.
That's a ton.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on it. Obviously, not the last we'll talk about tight ends, but like Alex said, maybe this is a stopgap year by necessity. Okay, let's move on then from there. Let's talk about Mr. Alex Smith. So I actually missed this, but I know he did his big interview, right, Alex? And you...
Yeah, Outside the Lines, I believe, is where he did a big interview.
He did.
Outside the Lines,
Yeah,
okay.
I caught it
So
by
can you guys-
accident, on Sunday morning,
Oh, you
I
caught it
didn't
by
know he was
accident.
on there. I
you
just-
take me through...
Yeah. I mean, I was watching it because I knew they were doing a Kobe Bryant piece. And all of a sudden it was, hey, Alex Smith is doing a live interview. Had to watch it.
Right. And now the big thing, because I've only seen the clips, and the big story that everyone's focusing on, which is fair, is him going into more detail about his recovery, because I don't think we realized some of this stuff, that he was in a coma for weeks, I guess, after they diagnosed him with sepsis.
No. I don't think he ever said he was in a coma. He just said that he was out of it. I don't think he actually was in a coma. He didn't say he was in a coma, but he said he was out of it and he doesn't remember anything. And when he kind of came to, that they told him he that he had
that's
sepsis.
Fair. It's not a coma. It's you were delirious or something.
I don't know what the medical definition of coma is necessarily, but he never said that. He just said he was out of it.
Okay, he never used the word coma. That's fair. Yeah, but sepsis, bad, very bad. And I think we knew he might have had sepsis.
Well,
but,
he also said he almost lost his leg. I knew Rick Snyder told us, or told me, or told, I can't remember if it was off the air or on the air, but Rick Snyder told me in one form or another that he was going to a rehab facility that was used by DOD or the military for troops who have been injured, had lower leg injuries in overseas in war. Because that was basically the extent of his injury was akin to a bomb blast, because it blew both the tibia and the fibia. It was offset bones and all these crazy fractures, all that stuff. But what he said in the interview just amazed me was, it was at one point in time, it was either do we amputate or do we go into what the military rehab people called leg recovery mode. That was his choice. They contemplated amputating his leg at one point in time. I don't know what he meant. I don't know what they meant by leg recovery, but it means something specific medically that worked, obviously, because he has his leg. But at one point, he was almost dead, and he almost got his leg amputated. It's been a lot worse than any of us realized.
Yeah. Well, and we've heard stories like this from time to time. I remember Teddy Bridgewater. There was a similar situation when he got his injury, that it was, you had minutes to decide, try and save the leg or amputate. Right. And, so this is a similar thing. These leg injuries, man, they can be pretty horrifying. And you don't think about it with the NFL, how bad they can
the
get.
other thing he said in this interview was Jeffrey, is it Jeff Shad? Jeff, the guy who does 30 for 30. Jeremy Shad is the guy who does it. Jeremy. Yeah. He said, okay, basically, you're going to play again. And Alex said, well, I want to play again. I definitely want to try and do it, but it's up in the air right now as to whether he can. He said he's going to give it a shot. He doesn't know if he's going to get there or not, but he wants to try to get back.
I don't want to see him out there on any team. Come on, man. Put it away. You almost lost your leg. You were going into toxic shock in your body. You're delirious for weeks on medications and whatever. Don't get back on the field, man. Why would you get on the field after getting a compound fracture, your bone sticking out of your leg, and you almost get it chopped off? Dude, stay home.
Because it's
Stay
kind of
home,
like,
Alex.
why did Charles Barkley rehab for a year to play one game and retire?
I get it.
Why did Kobe Bryant tear his Achilles at 36 years old and come back and play when he didn't have to?
This is how they're wired.
That's exactly right.
You know,
they don't want to
people.
let the injury defeat him. That's what Barkley said. I heard Barkley talk about it. For those of you who don't know, what happened was Charles Barkley, I think he tore his Achilles, I think is what it was. Missed a year. He came back to play one single game and went, okay, I did it. I'm done. Kobe, same thing. Came back, played 1 year. After that, Achilles, done.
Sure.
D. Hall did the same thing. So I think it's just these guys are wired to be competitive, and they just do not want to let the injury beat them. So I don't blame them for wanting to come back. It sort of throws into question what the Redskins are going to do if he does come back.
Well, right.
Well, I mean, they can't let him go. We all know his contract basically means he's uncuttable and probably untradeable.
Well, who would trade for him?
Yeah, who's going to want that?
Well, there's that too. I mean, I think you got to stick with a plan of Haskins starts, Alex holds a clipboard, and is your backup / coach. Because I mean, we saw late last year Smith, even though he wasn't healthy, was basically the QB coach for Dwayne Haskins for a while. Or the assistant QB coach, maybe you want to call him. And we know he's a smart guy. I mean, I look at him in these interviews and I see future NFL head coach, future NFL GM. He could probably be an on-air guy if you want. Like that, he's literally a guy who could do whatever he wants after he's done.
I feel what you're saying, by the way, Sean. He's got a young wife, he's got young kids, he's got a family. Why would you endanger all that? I mean, I get it. It seems to me, though, that this situation has got more of a time crunch than we might think. Because last year when this happened, Redskins had two competent pros. They had Case Keenum and Colt McCoy, and you can debate how good they are or not, but they were both pro quarterbacks, and they could at least go out there and not embarrass themselves. Right now, as it stands, the Redskins have Dwayne Haskins, period, dot, the end. Dwayne,
right.
That's it. And then whatever Alex's status is. So if Alex can't play and there's nobody else there in a world of hurt, it's going to be like the Trey Quinn show, who was the emergency quarterback at the end of last year. They're going to have to bring a guy in, a competent number 2 quarterback in free agency if Alex can't go. So they need to know, like, in a month, if he can be the backup quarterback, if they have 2 guys who can play or not, or 1. Because they can't even really bring in they can draft a guy, but that draftee is not going to be a valid number 2 quarterback himself. So they really need to know if Alex can play before free agency, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like, what is going to change? What are they going to do? Get him out there for tryouts in the off season? Make him run some sprints and see what he can do. I mean, like,
well, they know he can play.
Can he even do that now? Can he do that? Though?
Really
I don't think he can.
No,
do that
I mean, they know he's a competent quarterback. They really need a medical evaluation of him. That's what
I'm saying.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, right. Okay, so that's the next step for them, is to get him in a penny or a jersey and have some medical staff nearby and just see how he does.
Can this dude play at all? Should he play at all? And can he get there by training camp? Because if they wait till July, there's not going to be a competent number 2 quarterback left on the market.
Yeah. I mean, either way, you've got to pick someone up sooner rather than later.
I mean, step one is we all saw that video last year when he was supposedly healthy again, but his leg was still twice the size of his normal leg.
That was in a photo, a Halloween photo that his wife put out.
Right.
Yeah.
We all saw that last year. Step one. Put him in front of a doctor and say, is his leg back to normal size? Like, is it the swelling gone?
Does this pass the eye
Do
test?
an X-ray. Is all the pus and all the horrible stuff out of it? Let's figure that out.
That's what I'm saying.
Once we figure that out,
I guess
we can
that's what
move
I'm
forward.
saying. I mean, they need to know, but they need to know that sooner rather than later, because once free agency opens, they're going to have to sign the next Case Keenum or somebody like that to back up Dwayne Haskins. And because Dwayne is a rookie,
quite literally,
I mean, they need a good quarterback, good number 2.
Quite literally, we're talking maybe a couple-hour medical evaluation at the most, and that's just have him sit down with a doctor and give us an honest evaluation.
What he didn't explain in the interview, and what nobody knows, is really how far along is he. I mean, we've seen the workout stuff where he's throwing the balls around, but you can't get any sense of it in a 10-second video clip. It's like, how far is this dude really? I think it's a very serious problem because I just don't know what you do otherwise, unless you just sign somebody no matter what. Just assume he's not going to be there, sign somebody, and if Alex shows up, Alex shows up. Maybe that's the way to go.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I don't think there's any other solution. You can't bank on this, and I'm sorry, but a compound fracture and sepsis isn't a torn Achilles or a torn something else. It's totally a beast of a different nature. I think there's no doubt he's ever going to be even close to the same as he was before this injury. You pick someone up now. You don't leave this to fate. I would not trust Alex Smith on that.
Well,
no way.
I mean, the compound fracture is one thing. The sepsis, I think the sepsis, you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's an infection.
He has the sepsis at this point.
He's been through hell. The man's been through hell, though. His body's been through hell. He was in a wheelchair. He had that awful, Terminator-looking brace on his leg for months and months at a time. I mean, is he even an athlete anymore? Is he even athletic anymore? You know what I mean?
Right.
He's obviously more athletic than all of us, but, I mean, is he like a pro-level athlete anymore?
Sure. I think we all knew what you meant.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm saying if it were up to me now, I think you hit on it right on the end there, Steve. You can't bank on this. Assume that he's not ready to go. Get someone else. And if a horrible situation arises and you need him, then that's when you pray.
Right.
Well, they have how many weeks till free agency
starts? It starts in March, mid-March. It's March 18th. So, I mean.
So you got a month to really have him sit down with
and
doctor.
Also, Rivera, remember at his introductory press conference was asked about the quarterback situation. And Rivera, I'll paraphrase, basically said, I like Dwayne, but, some veterans might be able to play too, or something like that. He was he was obviously not just handing the job to Dwayne, but he was also leaving the door open to Alex coming back and playing, or somebody else, you know.
He actually mentioned Colton Keenum at that point too, because they were still on the roster. But
but their contracts were expiring. They weren't, they were on the roster on name only at that point.
He said what he needed to say.
That's my point.
He left it vague enough that.
Well, he could have gone in there and said, Dwayne is our guy. He could have said that from the beginning. He didn't have to say that, actually. Everybody would have been perfectly fine with saying, Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback, we're moving forward with him. We're going to prepare him all summer, all spring. He could have said that. And I think it would have come out okay, but he didn't,
God, do you remember how Jay Gruden bungled this with when he first got on the team, and he was like, "No, Robert's not necessarily the quarterback," and then 2 days later, he was like, "Oh, Robert's definitely the quarterback."
Well, until
blah, blah, blah.
Jay finally his nuts dropped, and then he came out and he just said, "Robert's bench, period, dot, the end. Kirk's quarterback going forward." He finally did it, but it took 2 years of meandering for him to get there.
Exactly.
Well, because he was hired to fix Robert Griffin
and failed at it.
Yeah.
Well, has anyone succeeded
he's
yet?
Done okay, and he's done. He seems to be okay in Baltimore. He's he's a valid backup quarterback there.
I don't know about how valid that is.
He fits the system perfectly. He
fits
the system to a T. He is.
That's true. He does fit the system.
He's an older Lamar Jackson. Exactly.
Right. As long as he doesn't play old.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, you put him out there when they need him, and we'll get the old Robert will show up lickety-split.
I'm not here to defend Robert Griffin. I'm just saying.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Damn it, Steve, defend your position on your love of Robert Griffin.
You're going to die on this
is a guy who, if you had put him in the right situation with the right coach and had somebody who could ride herd on his enormous ego, he could have played. Because what has the NFL gone to? Look at Patrick Mahomes is one of these guys that runs around. Russell Wilson was sort of the starting mark of it. Lamar Jackson. There's a whole bunch of these guys that play like Robert Griffin did. Robert Griffin was ahead of his time, but he just let the whole. He was so psyched to be Robert Griffin that he let it ruin his career. And the injuries.
But I also think he was. I hate to use the term injury prone because I don't necessarily believe in it, but. He was that.
He was that.
He couldn't stay healthy.
He also had very poor technique, poorer than the other guys that you're bringing up in this conversation. He had really bad footwork.
Could have improved, though. Coaching could have hypothetically improved that. I just think his ego and Mike Shanahan, the combination of two enormous egos, Mike Shanahan's ego versus Robert Griffin's ego, caused a supernova that blew up everything.
It was bad.
Yeah, you're right.
No, that's fair. Since we actually are getting close to the end here, let's make sure we get to our other topic, which is Rivera himself. Nice segue, because we were just talking about Mr. Rivera. So he did a more recent interview where he talked about his core group of players. Yes, Steve? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, okay. So this is down at the Super Bowl. He did an interview with J.P. Finley's podcast and was talking about how he had a core group of Redskins. He didn't want to name them.
Right.
But he said there's a core group of players who are going to be, the leaders of the team going forward. And so the guessing game begins because he didn't name any of them. I think it's safe to say he sort of alluded to Terry McLaurin being one. So, I mean, you throw Terry in there. But in terms of the rest of them, there's a bunch of open question marks. What is Trent Williams? Is Adrian Peterson even going to be on the team next year? The team has an option they need to exercise on him. He's not just signed through 2020. The team holds an option that they need to actually exercise. So who are the leaders of the team? Landon Collins by default is one.
That's a good one.
I mean, John Allen's probably another one. On the offense, it's like beyond Terry McLaurin and I suppose Dwayne Haskins, maybe. I don't know who on earth is your core guys.
Well, so you got to figure out the Trent Williams situation, which I know he's also talked about now and said that he's got to go and he thinks directly talk with Trent himself, which, it's nice to see somebody say, I'm going to go talk with Trent myself, which we didn't really see.
He needs to fly down to Houston and go to the Athletica gym in the Heights and go talk to him.
Sure. Yeah. And we've talked about, Bruce Allen said he did it, and, no one really believed him. So, somebody has to do it. But, I mean, that's going to be one. I think you look at the defense, you could probably, along with Allen, you throw in all the other guys that have been kind of the head of that defensive unit, front seven, Ioannidis, maybe Kerrigan still. I don't know if Kerrigan's going to be around, though.
I think if you ask me, I think the fans are much lower on Ryan Kerrigan than the team is, if you ask me.
Well, we always know he's a good, high-motor, team-first guy. Yeah. So coaches love guys like
Let's let him get a chance in the new defensive scheme. This could be a great change for Kerrigan. Let's give him a chance.
Ryan Kerrigan was always a 4-3 defensive end. The team's been using him wrong all these years.
There you go. So hopefully he gets a little career resurgence. Yeah, sorry not to interrupt.
No. I mean, it's just there's not a lot of guys. Dunbar, you guys know I'm always high on Dunbar. So
yeah, but would you call him a core guy? That's I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, this is why it was such a great question. It's because Ron has a list of names in his head as to who they are. Mm-hmm. That could be anybody because and Brandon Scherf is not on the team, not on the roster right now. Brandon Scherf would definitely be one of those guys.
Yeah,
but he's not a Redskin currently. He's free agent, or if they franchise tag him, blah blah blah. But the point is, he's not signed for next year.
You gotta. I mean, and we've talked about it before, but who's going to be the Luke Kuechly for these guys? Ron Rivera's a big ex linebacker. Our defensive coordinator, ex linebacker. These guys got to have their linebacker stud.
This is why I keep preaching to the cult of Chase Young people. It's wonderful that you like Chase. He's an outstanding player. But I keep saying, they've got two defensive ends. They have literally no linebacker core. None. What are you going to do about the linebackers? I mean, bring in a defensive end. Well, I'd rather have a middle linebacker. And spoiler alert, we are running the first of our free agency series, the second of our free agency series this week, probably Thursday. It's going to be inside linebackers, where I started with. The inside linebacker group is barren. Free agency. There's not a lot of them.
Yeah, it's not strong.
And there's not a lot of top of the draft middle linebackers either. It's a serious problem. And Reuben Foster, God knows what's up with that guy. They have a really, really serious linebacking problem right now. And I think when you have a 4-3 defense, you need a stud middle linebacker more than anything, which they don't have.
And, I know history doesn't always indicate anything, but I've said this before. The Redskins have never drafted an inside linebacker, middle linebacker in the first round in 80-something years.
Isaiah Simmons can do it. That's why I keep preaching. I keep preaching Andrew Thomas, Isaiah Simmons. One of those two guys is really who they need more than Chase Young.
And look, if they get a good trade back partner, I don't have a problem doing that being a decision.
In number two, I don't believe in this draft value stuff because all you're really saying is like, Todd McShay says these guys are ranked this way, so the draft value is this. I couldn't care less what Todd McShay thinks. To me, what's important is which player will contribute most to the team. And I don't know what that is. None of us are experts at it, but that's what's important to me. It's not what Todd McShay thinks is the right draft value. I think that's just idiotic.
I mean, that's all well and good, Steve. But what I would argue is the team's scouting department is made up of not Todd McShay, but guys who are going to figure out, like Todd McShay does, this is my number one guy.
And we have zero idea who that is.
No, we have zero idea who that is. But they're probably all going to come to a consensus and say, this is the number one guy, this is who we're going to pick at 2. It might not be Chase Young. Right now, from the public side of information, all we hear is Chase Young's the top guy in this draft.
Yeah.
The team is definitely going to develop a draft board. They're definitely going to rank order these players for sure. There's no doubt about that. I just mean...
Then there's going to be a name circled at number 1, and they'll probably get him.
To circle this back to Riverboat Ron's core group of guys thing, to me, you have to have the middle linebackers got to be one in a 4-3 defense. They have one middle linebacker on the roster, which is Sean Dean Hamilton. That's it. And that's a problem. They've got to...
He's not even really a middle
by
linebacker.
Default.
He's probably
he's the only one who can do it. By default, that's it. What do you do about that? They have got to solve the problem, one way or another. That's why I draft Isaiah Simmons, throw him out there,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying with that. Actually, you might be selling me on this whole inside linebacker thing first. Do we want to have a little fun with this and try to go around and give our 2-3 core guys if we were Riverboat Ron in this situation? Okay, let's do it. Sure. Do I have to start since I am making us do this? Okay.
Yeah, you got to start now.
All right. My only last question: are we doing offense and defense, or just are we picking like
2 or 3 core guys,
full team,
whoever they are?
Yeah, give me basically pick your team captains right now.
Okay. I am going to not count the Scherfs and the Trent Williams and the guys who are real question marks, etc. So, Terry McLaurin is an obvious one. I think that's pretty clear. I'm gonna say Haskins as well. He's your core guy. He's your captain, your offensive captain going into this year at least. Picking a guy from defense.
It's like silence.
No, I'll do it.
Radio show, Sean.
I'll do it. Dead air. Yeah. I don't know. Collins is the obvious answer. I feel like I want to say a line like Anderson or a Sweat or something, but I just can't. So I guess Collins. I'll say. So there's my 3 guys.
All right.
Other than that, I don't know.
Okay, I'll go. Brandon Scherf, Terry McLaurin, Landon Collins, John Allen. I think Brandon Scherf's going to be a Redskin no matter what. They're going to franchise tag him if they don't have a deal. He's a multiple-time Pro Bowler. Ron Rivera's going to count on him to be the leader of that group. I think the Redskins are done with Trent Williams.
Me too.
If the owner fires the team president, the training staff, all of the training staff, and the coach, and the man still isn't in the building, screw him. I think they're done with him. So I think Brandon Scherf is the O-line guy from now on. So Terry McLaurin, Brandon Scherf, Landon Collins, John Allen. I think Dwayne is just too young for it, and
he's not proven enough yet.
Yeah, see, I answered this question differently. I like your answer, Steve, but I was thinking more who my core guys are, not necessarily from every position group. Like picking your team captains from every group. But I like that answer. It's a good one.
Yeah. If I'm doing it based more on who are our top talents, it's going to be McLaurin on offense for sure. I like Collins a lot. I think he's kind of got this weird love of the Redskins, even though I don't think he necessarily grew up a Redskins fan. It's the Sean Taylor thing. So, but I think he's kind of going to be there. And Steve's going to kill me for it, but I'm going to put Matt Ioannidis because he's probably our most consistent
I'm not going to kill you for it. You're in an intimate relationship. You've been in an intimate relationship with this man for 3 years now, so I don't blame you. You're sticking up for your man. I get it.
Yeah, see, I like the Ioannidis, and again, I was thinking about going, Ioannidis. Like, I wish I could say a Sweat or an Allen or something, but I don't know. It just doesn't. Do you really think? Does Rivera look at that as like a core guy? I don't know. That's the question.
Yeah, we don't have any idea who he's gonna really love.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, well, we got a couple minutes here. So do we want to just mention these last couple things we were going to talk about? Alex, you had kind of an interesting study from Berkeley and University of Michigan. You heard about?
It just popped up a couple hours ago in my news feed that apparently the University of California, Berkeley, along with the University of Michigan, did a new poll on the Redskins name and if Native Americans found it offensive.
Hold on a minute. So you're telling me that the most liberal university in the country is going to poll about racism? I mean, how is this poll going to turn out, people? I'm shocked.
Yeah,
I'm just very curious.
So let me just give some stats on the poll because, people always want this stuff. The full details they're apparently releasing next month in some kind of peer-reviewed journal. This was just like the quick hit press release
Abstract
stuff.
kind of thing. Yep.
Yeah, 1,000. They went with 1,000 people in the polling, which I guess it turns out that's more than the Post did in their last one. They were trying to double that.
I think that's pretty common. Yeah.
Post was
1,000.
Yeah, 500 to 1,000 is the minimum, I think, for any good poll. Their results: 49% of participants found the Redskins name offensive, 38% not bothered by it, 13% undecided or indifferent, and not shockingly, number is higher with people who actually or are actively involved with their tribe's culture. So
I mean, look, good for Berkeley. You do a poll, yay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I can't stand that line of political thought. Makes me want to hang myself. But that aside, it just doesn't matter. The Supreme Court case is over. The name isn't going to change.
Yeah.
You can poll all day long, and it's not going to make a bit of difference, right or wrong.
No, well, yeah, absolutely. But that's not really what the poll was about, though. The poll was about whether or not you were personally offended on it, not whether or not you felt the government or someone should take action against it, which has been established they cannot do.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But that's actually...
And the only other thing, the thing that was interesting, or not even interesting, but worth noting, they also did more of a broader poll on stuff like we saw with the Kansas City Chiefs, the tomahawk chop, or the chanting, and that apparently draws a much stronger
Well, I'll tell you
response.
the one that even I think is racist, and I'm not offended by anything. It's Chief Wahoo with the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
Which I think they've finally gotten rid of fully.
For the most part, I think it's kind of gone. That was the one that was like a caricature of something, and that was poorly done. And even I thought, and I don't get offended by this stuff. So
that was a little much.
Yeah, it was a little much.
And you got to remember, the Braves had an old logo too that I think was pretty.
Yeah, the Braves had
crass.
It was a caricature of a Native American head.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now, and I will give Cleveland credit. The way they went about kind of getting rid of Wahoo, probably a better tact than Dan Snyder's, go into the press and tell everyone to,
Dan
kiss
Snyder
my
went scorched earth about it,
Yeah, he did.
Right.
But I admired him for it. I think he did the right
him.
thing. Absolutely. I would have done the same thing. Screw you. It's my team.
Right. And you would have had a PR nightmare for 5 years, just like you did.
He did the right thing. He stood. That was one thing I will always applaud Dan Snyder for. He went, I'm not going to entertain this nonsense. It's dumb. This is a name, and I'm not changing it. Screw all of you. That's exactly what I would have said.
That is what he did. Well, it seems like this issue. I mean, what's interesting is even coming out of a super liberal, academic institution, it seems pretty even, and that seems to be most of the polls on this topic. Frankly, it seems to be, for the most part, fairly down the middle on this topic, from no matter who is doing the polls. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's damn shame that we have to, that our team has to be caught up in this. Obviously, no one likes it, but this is a total gray issue.
The big picture question with all these things is, to me, in whose eye is the offense? Does it matter if one because I can be offended by an apple sitting on the table.
I mean, you're offended by plenty of things, Steve.
Just let me just say that my outrage is...
You just spent 10 minutes crying about Berkeley.
Let me just say that my outrage is a bit of an act. I really don't get offended by much of anything. There's a few things. Military stuff offends me. People who back on the military, that offends me. But the flag thing with Colin Kaepernick greatly offended me. But my point is that for the macro issue is in whose eye is the offense, and what responsibility is there to do anything about it? Just because there's a group of people that claim to be offended by it, because you can be offended by anything. I can be offended by an apple sitting on the table because it reminds me of, when the apple hit my brother in the face and broke his nose, and he's been scarred for life by it, so I'm offended. Well, nobody cares, and you shouldn't care that I'm offended by an apple sitting on the table. So the fact that somebody's offended by the name of a privately held business, should the privately held business even care? They have a responsibility to care. That's
it will only, and you know what? Money is the only thing that talks. And if the name change ever gets in the way of money, then you'll see a change. But not until then. True. I don't think there's any proof that issue has led to the team's financial decline. I think that's more the state of the team in general.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I don't think it's helped the attendance situation, but I don't think you could directly correlate any of the attendance situation.
It's made a single bit of difference as to the attendance. I've got a cool, totally unrelated thing. Cool thing came up today. Our buddy Steve Rosenberg, who, if you guys recall, wrote the autobiography of Sean Taylor. He was a guest on the show 2 summers ago.
Yes.
I've kept up with him ever since. Great guy. He just tweeted at us and said Gabe Taylor is announcing his college decision tomorrow. Gabe Taylor, Sean Taylor's little brother, who is a football player, who tomorrow is going to announce what football team he is going to sign with.
He didn't give you a scoop,
No, but
did he?
he tagged Canes football in the tweet. So I don't know. If Steve knows. Steve, for those you don't know,
Steve probably does know. He's very tight with him still.
with Sean's father, Pete Taylor, so he might know. But I don't think he would have just intentionally blown it, blown the thing by. So I don't know. But watch for that on Wednesday, and Steve is going to broadcast that live on Facebook. So I'm going to try and watch it. If I can figure out how to do that, how to watch it, I'm going to try and watch it.
Yeah, we'll have to shoot that out on Twitter if we get a link for it.
Yeah.
Retweet it.
Yeah, we'll tweet it. Okay, awesome. Well, any other thoughts about everything we've talked about today, guys? We talked Super Bowl stuff, Vernon Davis, the poll with Olsen, Alex Smith, Rivera.
We jumped all over the place.
We did. We had a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
No lingering thoughts? Okay, well, we will have plenty of time to talk about all of these things and so much more as the offseason officially begins in earnest now. So, much more Hogsty coming. Keep checking back at thehogsty.com, and of course, we will see you guys next time right here on the show. Take care.
In 1957, Laika became the first animal to orbit Earth. What kind of animal was Laika?
What is the only team in the Big Four North American sports leagues which shares its name with one of the Avengers?
And here's one more question for you. Are you the type of person who enjoys playing trivia games, learning new things, and having a bit of fun along the way?
If you are, or if you just want to find out the answers to those other questions, then our podcast, Quiz and Hers, might be right up your alley.
Each week, one of us writes new trivia questions for the other person, covering everything from science to history to pop culture to sports.
And every question in a game relates to some theme, like Game of Thrones,
internet memes,
sandwiches,
or animals in space.
Some of the themes make more sense than others.
So if you like trivia, learning, or real couples testing each other's knowledge and patience, check out our podcast, Quiz and Hers, part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.
Quiz and Hers, the trivia podcast where we test each other's knowledge and the strength of our relationship.